Well, I'm a husband of almost 30 years. Later this December, I have 3 daughters. My oldest daughter got married not quite 2 weeks ago to a guy from India. And so we had a huge wedding, or they did, mainly Indian people. There were some of us there as well, Americans, and it was an incredible time. But that's a whole nother story. But I wanted to throw a question out for you this morning to get you to think about. And if I need to repeat it, I will, because sometimes it tweaks the brain a bit. All right. What if there was a place so safe that the worst of you could be known, and you would discover that you would not be loved less, but more in the telling of it? Shall I repeat that? Okay. What if there was a place so safe that the worst of you could be known, and you would discover that you would not be loved less, but more in the telling of it? Now, feel free to answer me back if you want. Where do you find that? You find it in prayer, okay? Quiet time. So are you saying you find it with God? Okay. By the way, I wish that was my question. I read a book that was given to me several years ago called The Cure, C-U-R-E. And that question stood out for me like nothing else. I thought, what an incredible question to be given. Anybody else? Where would you find that? Recovery group. Okay.
Let's say it's God's kingdom on earth.
Okay. Marriage. Okay. Those are all right. Then when I heard that question, I thought, well, it's God. And I hung on that for a while, but it's not possible for it to be God. There's a part of a statement in there, a few words that would delete God from that. Let me say it again. What if there was a place so safe that the worst of you could be known, and you would discover that you would not be loved less, but more in the telling of it? What deletes God from that? He can't love you any more, any less. It's there. It's already given to us. So where do you find that then? The kingdom of God, our people, one another. I have the privilege, you have the privilege of doing that for someone else. You know what that feels like? In fact, I'm convinced that a lot of people, I'll say men specifically, have never found that spot. So what I want to do this morning, you said I have 15 minutes or so. So do you guys know the story of 1 Kings chapter 17 with Elijah and the widow and her son? Would you guys want to help me piece that together? So what's the situation? Who has need? The widow and the son. Who else has a need? Elijah. But it looks like he's the leader here, right? Although he is, but he still has need. God brings them together. And he tells her, can you give me water? Oh, by the way, bring me some bread. And she's going, we're at the very end of what we have. We plan to eat and then trust God to take us. We're going to die. And he comes to her home, and who knows, the story doesn't, the one chapter doesn't give enough detail, but things had to have happened so below the surface in that relationship because the few things that say it, especially the last verse. So let me tell you a few things that I wrote down here. Elijah, he's a man of God. He needs provision. Okay. The widow and her son, they need provision. So there's a lot of need here. God puts these two people together. He puts them in one another's lives. He's got a purpose here. Nothing surface about their relationship. You know what they dealt with? They dealt with hunger and fear and sickness and death. Good night. It is easy for me to get up and go to work, come to a meeting like this, talk to people, and keep it surface, and I don't get up wanting to do that. In fact, if that's all I have that day, I wonder, was that a waste today? And I think it was, at least for me, because what I find, especially with men, it's almost like a dance, isn't it, guys? How are you doing? I'm doing good. How are you? I'm doing good. How's the family? Yeah, those are legitimate questions. But would there be some place where we could sit down and say, you know what? I'm not doing so good. I have real need, something that I still battle with. And I'm an authentic man of God. I listen to my Father every day. He really feels like my Father. But I will struggle. I will tend to hold back from letting another man know a need that I have. That battles me all the time. And yet I've gotten better and better and better at making my need known. And I can't think of a time when I've made a need known to another man of God, who he didn't care about it. I mean, he did care about it. And he said, well, tell me about that. What do you need? Help me understand that. So was it Tuesday? Yeah, this is Thursday. 2 days ago in our Connect 3 group, we decided to, because of Thanksgiving, let's look at what we're thankful for, but let's tweak it a bit. What are we thankful for that we might not think normally we're thankful for? And one of the guys in the group said this. He said, he's a businessman. And he said, man, I have a lot of stress sometimes. And I had a situation, there was a problem. I didn't know what to do. He said, I talked to God about it and God worked it out. He said, I'll look back now. I'm thankful that I had that problem because it matured me and it developed me and it caused me basically to ask for help. Think about that. What are you thankful for that you didn't know that you'd be thankful for? So a few more notes I want to share with you. So what happened with this, with Elijah and the widow, they experienced provision, healing, the miracle of life being restored. If you're not familiar with this story, later on in the chapter, the boy gets sick and he dies. And the widow cries out to him and she says, Elijah, have you come here so that your God will kill my son? And Elijah, I mean, he physically, they're on top of this, the boy says, like 3 times. I mean, do you think he got involved in the guy's life, in her life? And so I wrote at the top of my page after I put the notes together, being involved in the lives of others makes an incredible difference. And if I understand you guys, I've not been a part of CBMC very long, but isn't that what you do? Isn't that the ultimate focus, to get involved in other people's lives where real conversations can happen and things take place? So anybody have any thoughts, or you want to add anything to the story that you've come across before in 1 Kings 17? Anything come to mind? Anything stand out? You know, that question that I asked you at the beginning, what if there was a place so safe? Do you think the widow and her son and Elijah had that? A place so safe that the worst of you could be known? They saw probably the worst of each other. You know, anybody ever gone to a class reunion? Right. I've never been to a class reunion. I don't know why. It just hasn't worked out. I haven't lived where I grew up. But I used to have the mindset. Well, what maybe is a mindset of people? I'm going to go to this class reunion and I want to be what? What do you want to be? The best. At what? All of it. Yeah. Yeah. Why? I better go to the gym now because people are going to see me. How's my career? What's my financial status? All these things. And you go to that class reunion. How are you doing? Well, things are great. Everything's wonderful. And if you've done this before, I'm not being critical. I'm just saying to step back and take a look at things. Have you ever looked at a Christmas letter and everything is incredible? This last year, Bobby got all A's. You know, Susie was first on the basketball team. I finally got that degree. Those things are wonderful. But actually, guys, I don't relate to that so much. I relate to hearing some needs that you have. I relate to some struggles that you have because I go, wow, me too. And so you become so human to me, and I become human to you. And I think what happened with the widow and Elijah, all stuff was put aside. Now, so she's watching Elijah pray and cry and weep over her son to be raised from the dead. And from my understanding, he actually dies. Okay. And she's frantic and she's angry. And she says something like, you're God. And then he comes back to life. And guys, I want to give one verse to you to think about today. It's the last verse of this chapter, verse 24. And she says this. So God became real and tangible to the widow and her son. That's what I love about this story. He didn't come in there being religious or trying to have all the answers, but he let his life show them how real he was and therefore how real God was in his life. And she says this to him. Anybody know what the widow says to him? It's really an incredible statement. She says this, the woman said to Elijah, now I know that you are a man of God, okay? And that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth. I don't think he came in there with a seminary degree showing off or how many verses he had memorized or anything like that. He didn't talk any religion. He let his life, he talked about God. This is who God is. This is who my Father is. I know the character of God. We can trust him. And he lived it in front of her. And I wish I could sit in on those conversations they would have had at the table. All right. A lot of pain, a lot of hurt, but a lot of hope. And then she sees her son raised and she says, now I know that God is real and that every word that comes from your mouth is from God. I thought, what an incredible privilege I would have. What if other people saw me that way? Because I chose to care about my reputation, but I also cared to be transparent with people. Because if you think I have it all together, I don't need God so much, guys. And I don't know why it happens with us as humans, but we can go into a meeting, we can go into church, we can go into numerous places, and especially if we're dressed nice and we look like we have it all together. I have a lot together, but you know what I don't have? What do you think? I don't have it all together. I don't. And I'm not going to try to convince anybody, that's in the past. And so she said, now I know that you're the man of God and every word that comes from your mouth. So we have the privilege of impacting people so deeply if we will get involved in their lives. I promise you, there were some tears, there was some stress, maybe some angry words besides what she said to her when her son died to Elijah. That's part of it, isn't it? It's messy sometimes. But if I open my heart up to people and say, look, I want to know you and I want you to know me. So what I want to do, I want to read. So I lead a nonprofit that we focus on mentoring. And I believe this. I've wrestled with this for years. People say, what's discipleship? What's mentoring? What's coaching? What's counseling? And so I have it worked out in my head, but I've found this to be true for me, is that if I begin to reach out to a guy and I begin to mentor him, I earn the right to disciple him. He trusts me. He trusts me to tell him about the things of God. So I'll get testimonies about mentoring. And so I want to read one to you. This is a young man, about 27, 28 at the time he wrote this. And it says, I am so thankful, for our relationship through mentoring. You've been a life changer for me. You spoke identity into me. No one else had ever done this for me before. I considered myself worthless, and you told me that I was a child of God, and this made a huge difference in my life. Okay. Any fluff there yet? This is real stuff. You made me feel worthy by listening to me and not dismissing my problems, even though you may have seen them as trivial. Because they were important and serious to me, they were important and serious to you. You wanted to be involved in my life. As Jesus did with people, you too always sought to go after my heart. You wanted to go into the core of who I am. You asked me questions to get to the core of who I am. You made me think. You changed my life. Although we were only together for a short time, those were some of the most significant times of my life. It has been a privilege to know you. I appreciate what you do. You serve others through mentoring. You change lives through mentoring. This is a young man that was part of a church, but he was invisible in his church, I think. And a mentor notices him, sees potential. I said, hey, can we have a conversation? And this young man did this. He goes, he's sitting across from the table with his mentor, and he held his fist up like this. And he told his mentor, and the young man said it with almost a bit of anger. And he said, look, I don't understand what's going on. See my fist? He goes, it's closed and it's hard. He says, it's like my heart with people. And this is the believer, okay? A young man who'd grown up in church, but never had real conversations, never initiated by another man. And he goes, but with you, my mentor, my heart's totally open. He said, and basically it's freaking me out. I don't understand what's going on. How incredible is that? How sad is it? But how incredible it is. He goes, I've never experienced this with another man. Is this possible? And the mentor goes, it is possible. Thoughts or questions you might have?
Well, I made a comment there. I thought that was really key. find it here. You say that when we mentor someone, we sort of earn that right to be heard in that relationship, which is a stepping stone to discipleship. I thought that was key.
I think so. Because I've had, especially living in Austria, guys, I lived there about 9 years. It's a dark culture spiritually. All right. I didn't ask one man to let me mentor him over there. I made it known. They'd say, "What do you do?" You know, guys do that. Well, so what do you do? Well, I say, "Well, I'm a mentor and I lead a mentoring nonprofit." What is that? I began to explain to them. Could we talk about that? And we'd meet for coffee and I explain what it is. And these are some guys who are believers and some who are not, and totally open. And some would come to Christ and some wouldn't. But you know what we had? We had genuine relationships where there was no fluff, there was no surface stuff. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions you might have?
There are lots of in the desire of the tour, and they're just waiting for someone to bring it up to them.
Very much so. How many of you in this room had a mentor? Really? Wow. This is a strange statement for me, a guy who does this all the time, but I've never been mentored at the depth that I mentor other men. Make sense? Maybe that's why I'm so passionate about it. I come from a broken home, alcoholic father, no father figure in my life. And I go, how'd that happen? How does that work out? You know, well, God can do miracles, can he? All the time. And so would I have the passion? Have I complained? You know, I had a pity party one day going, God, how come there hasn't been a father figure in my life? I don't know. But one guy said, well, Chris, just the other day, he said, would you be as passionate about this? Maybe not if you hadn't had that. So, thoughts or questions? Guys, how are we on time? All right, let me give you the question more time. What if there was a place so safe? Put your name in there. That the worst of you could be known. You would discover that you would not be loved less, but more in the telling of it. You know what the enemy wants for us today, men and women? He wants us to keep that junk in our head that we're battling, we're struggling with, and not let anybody else know that. Okay? I know it's a lie, but I buy into it still sometimes. And I get away with God. Okay, God, this is right. There has to be another man on the planet who could be this for me. Okay? So thank you guys.